All right. Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the Pod CCA. I keep wanting to say that. I did this the last time I was on. I tried to say Pod CCAst, and it's just podcast. It's just podcast. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. But yeah, no, it's great to be back. We got the circuit just on the horizon. A bunch of stuff's been happening this past summer with the CCA and a lot of other collegiate teams. And wow, it's also just been a while for us, Krona, hasn't it?
It has been. What was it? May was our last episode or something like that.
Yeah,
I
no,
might be mixed up because I know we had the reveal show for Booyah Bowl too, but that wasn't technically podcast either.
that was like a
Or
silly little bonus, like to stave you all off, if you will.
that's just
Um,
me rumbling about my Spotify playlist.
yeah, that too. Um, Man, Krona, it's we've chatted quite a bit, obviously recently, but the good people here probably don't know what's been going on in our worlds really recently, if anything. How's it been over with the WPI crew for you?
It's been good. I'm still here in my graduate year here, so still leading the troop strong, getting everything set up for this new semester of CCA and Collegiate Splatoon goodness. So things are looking up. Yeah. What about you?
Awesome.
Because you fully graduated from Purdue now, right?
Yeah, just like you, I graduated from my undergrad. As things currently stand, I'm not just yet pursuing a graduate degree. I think in the future I might want to. But I did start my first full-time job, which is exciting in its own right. And I've been able to hang out with, some friends, catch up with some people over the past few months, and also work on some fun projects, both related to the CCA and some private ones too. So it's been relaxing and exciting as well. So it's just been a really fun past few months getting to tackle everything, and I'm really excited for what's on the horizon with us.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, with that all in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give you all just a brief overview of what this episode today is going to be about. I'm sure you can all see a few of our headliners today, but to kick things off, we're going to do some CCA announcements. Following that, we're going to cover what happened this past summer with the CCA. We had quite a few events and just a lot of it exciting energy. And then, speaking about energy, Riptide was already almost a month ago, which is crazy to think about. And as a part of that, the CCA had our second Collegiate Crews event, which was very exciting again in its own right. And we had 13 teams in total compete in person, which was, I think, the largest number that a collegiate associated or related LAN has ever had for Splatoon. So a lot of progress in that regard as well. And yeah, we're going to go more deeper into all that. Don't you all worry. But later on, we're going to be talking about Entrance Exam 4. Um, and then following that, we have an exciting interview with the captains and leaders of Texas A&M University, in particular their Maroon squad and their B team as well. And then to cap things off, it's been a year of the podcast already, and I think um, to help celebrate that, it would be a really great opportunity to just reflect what's happened the past year and really just talk about what we've been able to accomplish through this project and what our favorite moments and what how much like fun we've also had being able to run it too. So yeah, that's just a overview of what we're going to be talking about today. Hope you guys are going to be looking forward to all of that. And let's get this all in a roll. So to start off with some CCA announcements, the qualifier one is going to be tomorrow, actually, in the evening. I believe it's going to be about 7 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. PST. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Corona.
I'm
But
pretty sure it's 4 p.m.
it's 4 p.m. Okay. Yeah,
4 p.m.
I think
Pacific.
you're right.
Pacific's 3 hours behind.
Okay, yeah. But that's going to be happening. And we also have fantasy. as well to go along with that. And we're going to be bringing that back this season with a whole new format. So before you would pick one team from each division for the whole season, in this case now with our new circuit format, we'll be having you pick several teams from the entire pool of competitors for every qualifier. So this will be much more like a traditional NFL or similar sports fantasy system that some of you may partake in, where you pick your players every week. And our entry form for this is going to be actually open right now and will close
Let me
once the
grab
qualifier
that.
begins on Saturday. So be sure to pick your picks as fast as you can. And that's something I also have to do as well, because we have quite the circuit to look forward to tomorrow. Um,
Do you know how many teams off the top of your head, Oma?
I think I briefly checked and it broke 100, I think.
Like here, sign up teams, as in teams have not had issues and had to drop. We're at 107 collegiate teams
Wow.
for Circuit Qualifier 1, which is the most ever. It's the highest participation level for a single day collegiate event, which is crazy. That doesn't include the extra, I think it's like 9 teams that signed up on the Google form that just are not participating in Circuit 1 as well. So already we are off to such a thrilling and exciting start for the fall 2024 semester of Collegiate Splatoon. So you definitely are going to want to tune in to the developments that are happening tomorrow at the circuit and keep an eye on things throughout the entire development of the qualifiers.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, get your fantasy picks in. I'll have to do that later as well. But to move on a little bit from the qualifiers and that domain of stuff, new to this semester is the collegiate calendar. So the collegiate calendar is curated by us here on the CCA staff and hopes to track all the collegiate restricted Splatoon events and serve as a guide for the larger collegiate scene. You can view the calendar by itself. It's a Google Calendar, so it's really you just pull up on a web page, or you can even add it to your own calendar application, whether that's the Google, Outlook, iCloud, whatever. Furthermore, if you're hosting any collegiate events and wish for your own event to be added to this calendar, you can submit an add event request form, and the CCA staff will look into it. So this is both a Google Calendar, like I mentioned there, but we also are producing a monthly graphic for that as well. September's one was published, I believe, last Tuesday, and then October's will be coming here shortly. But yeah, so this project is mainly just trying to make sure the entire scene is aware of kind of the developments that are happening for the collegiate events, keep track of the stuff that might not be hosted by CCA, but still is interest to the larger collegiate scene. So definitely check that out if you're interested. It's a great resource. And then finally, myself and Mizuno will be hosting a town hall-like presentation to present some of the findings for the State of Collegiate Splatoon 2024 survey next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you're curious about kind of what some of those results brought up and kind of how the CCA is kind of looking at that, please feel free to join. We have about a 40-minute presentation over across the 3 different areas, that being community, teams, and then university programs as well. It's a great time. And then there will be a Q&A section afterwards as well to answer some questions that people might have remaining. Like all of our normal presentations, the slides will be posted in the resource channel afterwards, and then this will also most likely be recorded, so you can watch back the full presentation at later dates. But yeah, that's all we had here for the CCA announcements for this week. We're getting those normal projects up and running again that you usually see with all the recurrence new semester stuff. So just be on the lookout for that. So let's move on to a recap of the CCA Summer 2020 events. Only including ones that were purely hosted by the CCA. We have 3 in total. The first being Collegiate Crossfire, which happened, oh my god, all the way back in May. Yeah, I think it was late May. This happened. So it's been a while, folks. But for those of you who weren't aware, Collegiate Crossfire was a crossover event with the CCA joining up with the NSE, which is the Collegiate Splatoon organization for the UK, to have an invitational tournament featuring the best from both organizations have to offer. Representing the CCA were PSU Blue, VCU Big Fat Sea Cows, Night Sharks, and UCSD Esports Gold. So a lot of those top level, top caliber Division 1 teams that have repeatedly proven themselves here in our leagues as well. So representing the NSE were Cambrian Explosions, the KCL Sea Lions, the Portsmouth Paladins, and the Sea Slugs. So the top four bracket featured two matchup of rival teams for their respective leagues, as PSU Blue nearly beat out VCU Big Fat Sea Cows in five, while CKL Sea Lions swept Portsmouth's Palatines. The finals match were then four games, with the CCA's own PSU Blue emerging as the Crossfire champions, beating KCL 3-1, while VCU finished in third. Silver bracket similarly saw CCA success, with UCSD fending off Cambrian Explosions in four as the Night Sharks came in third place. So this was a fantastic event and showed some camaraderie and some relationship building with the UK collegiate teams. So I believe for both organizations was marked as a success. So hopefully we'll see something like this happen in the future as well. But yeah, so moving on from that, Oma, you want to take the big CCA Invitational?
Heck yeah. So we also had our third edition of the Booyah Bowl this past summer. Can't forget about that. That's the big headliner event, and always a big celebration of what happened the past CCA. Typically 2 seasons, although obviously this year we may shake things up a bit depending on what happens. But yeah, so Booyah Bowl 3 was a very exciting celebration of the 2023 to 2024 CCA school and academic year, as 16 of the top teams from CCA seasons 4 and 5 were brought together to battle it out in a really explosive invitational. The key Division One contenders were present, such as Red Embers, VCU's Big Fat Sea Cows, USD Esports Gold, Night Sharks, the GMU Patriots, and Coastal Squid Surf. A lot of classic names there, and a lot of people that I'm sure plenty of you recognize. And additionally, Booyah Bowl 3 featured some very notable teams from all across our other divisions, including the Splatlanders, UNM Esports, SplatScad Black, Walk, Springfield, Ohio, California State University Long Beach Black, Titans of Alterna Orange, Seminole Cephalopods Garnet, and both Grisco Workers Union and the Grisco Union Busters from WPI. These brackets were full of exciting battles, and in the end, it was the VCU Big Fat Sea Cows that won it all in an intense 5 game set over the defending Division One champions, UCSD Esports Gold. So, huge shout outs to the Big Fat Sea Cows, who we may be talking about later in a lot of different conversations. And Red Embers took third place in a narrow win over the very impressive Splatlanders, who just continue to impress us with how much of a brutal force they've been in the different CCA events, with them absolutely destroying the competition in Division Two of last CCA season, and everything they've been able to accomplish prior to that as well. So yeah, shout
Fun
outs to them.
fact:
Yeah.
they took VCU to a game five in semifinals in the gold bracket for Booyah Bowl. That was
Oh
insane to
wow.
watch. I was watching their stream because I was on vacation and couldn't
Uh
participate. But
huh.
oh my god, fantastic team! Booyah Bowl is always my favorite because you get to see these top level Division two teams like start to duke it out with these mid level Div one teams, and you get the most interesting results. But yeah, shout out Splatlanders, big fans.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, it's been so long already that I don't remember any of the specifics, but the fact that like they were able to do that, definitely keep an eye on them for the circuit. That's all I'm gonna say for now. Um, but to cap things off, the Night Sharks were also able to have a notable showing where they were able to beat SplatScad Black 3-0 in silver bracket finals, while California State University Long Beach Black took the bronze medal there as well in a third place slot. So a lot of strong teams showing up. SplatScad Black was a team that we were really looking out for during season 5, and they continue to show their strength here, and a lot of division 1 teams, both new and classic in our CCA league season 5, did a great job as well. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff there. Can't keep saying
Yeah.
that enough.
I could talk about those results for another 20 minutes, but to keep the flow of things, there's so much to cover. Let's move on to the next, the final of the pure CCA events that happened over the summer, which was our annual Study Abroad. So, Study Abroad 2 was a free agent tournament where many collegiate players entered individually and were sorted into teams, matching players with players from all different schools. This event was split into two divisions, the first being Inkopolis, featuring players from Divisions 1 through 3, with Divisions 4 through 6 players duking out in Splatsville Division. There were many exciting teams with a lot of clever names being made, and in the end, Ecopolis was won by Unauthorized Foods, who edged out three Californians and a Texan walk across the time zone in grand finals, with 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. finishing third. The Silly Billies emerged victorious in Splatsville, winning 3-0 over Sleeping Confidential Informants, as Krusty Sean Fan Club came in third place. All in, this is a very exciting event. I got a lot of people to meet and play the game together. And my God, those names were certainly silly. Um, but yeah, no, it's great to hear because to see people getting excited for study abroad, it's been historically one of our more popular tournaments, as it does give players the opportunity to meet each other and to talk, not and play with people that aren't just from your college. So it seemed to be a great time, and a lot of fun had from all. So anything in comment there, Oma, or should we
I
move
mean,
on to
I
the
just
big boy?
really want to talk about one team that I think really stood the
Oh,
test of time in this tournament. Uh, Composed of quite a few silly individuals from our community with all peace and love. But I saw David DRF David at a grocery store in Sandusky, Ohio yesterday. Should I say the full name?
yes, you should.
Yeah, I told him how cool it was to meet him in person, but I didn't want to be a douche and bother him and ask him for photos or anything. He said, "Oh, like you're doing now?" I was taken aback, and all I could say was, "Huh?" But he kept cutting me off and going, "Huh? Huh? Huh?" and closing his hand shut in front of my face. I walked away and continued with my shopping, and I heard him chuckle as I walked off. When I came to pay for my stuff up front, I saw him trying to walk out the doors with like 15 Milky Ways in his hands without paying. The girl at the counter was very nice about it and professional and was like, "Sir, you need to pay for those first." At first, he kept pretending to be tired and not hear her, but eventually she turned back around and brought them to the counter. When she took one of the bars and started scanning it multiple times, he stopped her and told her to scan them each individually to prevent any electrical interference, and then turned around and winked at me. I don't even think that's a word. And she scanned each bar and put them in a bag and started to say the price. He kept interrupting her by yawning really loudly. I think that was a really cool team, and I don't I just think they're a really cool team. So shout out to you guys.
I forgot the name was that long.
It's literally a whole copy pasta, but it's
Yeah,
DRF
I
themed.
know. Of
I,
course. I mean, who else would it be?
but yeah,
But
I'm willing to vouch that this was a true story.
I was about to say, speaking of Sandusky, Ohio,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this
that
might have
leads us
happened.
in. It might have happened
It might
at
have happened.
Riptide 2024, which is hosted in early September, right? Yeah, early
Yeah,
September.
yeah,
So a
first weekend of
couple,
September, basically.
yeah, couple like 4 weeks or so back. So Riptide 2024 was the biggest Splatoon LAN event ever held in the West, and we actually had a lot of collegiate teams participate in both the main event and in the CCA's Collegiate Crews side bracket. So to quickly cover some of the notable teams in the main bracket, we had Big Fat Sea Clouds from Virginia Commonwealth University get top 32 in the events, with the University of Tennessee Knoxville Speeders making top 8 in silver brackets. We then had Middle Tennessee State's University Skyfall bash from Purdue University, and Golden Barracudas from Kutztown barely missed silver bracket, going 2-1 in the silver groups. And finally, you have Rochester Institute Technologies, Tiger Prawns, and Champlain Cerulean from Champlain College fought their best in silver groups, but were unable to make it out. So congrats to those teams who tried their luck in the main bracket at Riptide, a very competitive bracket nonetheless. But those teams were also at Riptide for another reason. And Oma, would you like to talk about how the Collegiate Crews bracket went for them?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd be more than happy to talk about some of that. So, with Riptide being the largest Splatoon LAN, the CCA Collegiate Crews bracket was also the largest collegiate Splatoon LAN. So, 14 different teams from 11 universities were able to battle off to see who came out on top. In silver bracket, UTK won first, going 3-1 against Springfield, Ohio in a hard fought silver bracket finals. And in a very impressive hard fought run, the Golden Barracudas made it to the gold bracket finals. They had an impressive win going 3-2 against MTSU Skyfall in groups, and they won against Boilermaker Meow, which was actually my pickup for this tournament. And they had another hard fought victory by winning game 5 against Champlain Cerulean in gold semis. Their run came to a close as they put a hard fought battle against VCU Big Fat Sea Cows in the gold finals. Nonetheless, huge congrats to them for getting second place. The VCU Big Fat Sea Cows came out on top, winning the whole event, and they didn't drop a single game throughout the whole night of the CCA bracket. Champlain Cerulean and RIT Tire Prawns also tied for third in the gold bracket. So there it was just like such a crazy experience being able to witness a lot of that night and also be able to
Hmm.
compete and participate in some of it as well. And although Big Fat Sea Cows was able to steamroll a lot of people, it was a lot of fun to just see um, what people were able to cook up against them, what how Big Fat Sea Cows would react to it, and just the games themselves were still very entertaining in their own rights. So, yeah, huge shout outs to
Hmm.
everyone that was there, and it was a pleasure to meet you if I happened to meet you. And yeah, I don't know, Krona, do you have any curiosities about anything else that went down?
Well, first of all, I just want to say it's fantastic to see these results, right? Like
Yeah,
Big Fat, it's kind of what you expected, being the big top dog there. But to see kind of the teams fighting for like second or third place in gold, and just see that bracket with RIT, Champlain, like Cutstown, fantastic stuff. Some of like the most notable and most recognizable teams here in the league. So, or the scene, not the league. Sorry. So it's good to see them kind of take their talent all the way out to Sandusky, Ohio, to see them kind of try to put on the show there. But yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't there, and I was stuck here in Massachusetts. But I'm kind of interested in kind of hearing what your thoughts on kind of the whole vibe and energy level of the place, especially because you were there last year too. And correct
yeah,
me if I'm wrong, but there were more teams this year, right?
yeah,
Kind of
there
what were the
were.
differences, and could you like feel it?
Yeah, I it was kind of interesting because I think it's fair to say that there was a significant enough difference that um, it was kind of hard to compare, ironically. So, how the collegiate bracket was run last year is there was an off stream setup and there was a stream setup, and the stream setup was on a table of just all the different switches and consoles and everything in the corner of the room where Prochara's stream was going on for Riptide 2023. And just because of how contained the tournament and space was that people who were either interested in it or competing in it were, and how just was, it like really contained a lot of it where you really only had two games you could watch, and typically a lot of people were more curious about what was maybe happening on stream. So
Hmm.
you had a lot of people really hyped up about certain moments. I remember when I was playing in the finals match last year that we had quite a lot of really
Humble
loud
brag.
cheering. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of
No, no,
humble
no.
brag, but
You
yeah,
say it, King. Come on.
yeah. But I, I bring that up because there was a lot of energy, like a lot of people like full blown screaming, like with everything in their body. And I think part of it was just because you had a lot of fun people that a lot of people, they're there supporting their friends. It's a really tight knit community, and everyone's showing up for each other. But with this year, not to say that that didn't happen, but with this year, it was much more spread out, where CCA basically kind of took every single setup that they could as it gradually popped up because um, whatever I'm forgetting the name of the bracket.
Redemption.
Redemption. That's right. I wanted to say retribution for some reason, and I that was not right. So I was pausing. But yeah, redemption bracket was going long. So uh, we kind of just were slowly trickling into spaces, and we also were on the Splatoon tourney broadcast this time. So um, because of that, a lot of people were more spread out. There were redemption brackets happening while people were starting to play like their second set of the CCA pools. So because of that, it was a bit more, I guess, wonky a little bit. People had to know where to show up. It's not like, oh, these are where all the people are. Like you just beeline to them. Um,
Hmm.
so I think by the time that you had those last few teams really there, like you had the silver finals match, for instance, or the gold finals, or uh, just the last few bracket matches, you started to see a lot more of that energy there. There were people grouping up to watch what was happening in silvers since that wasn't being streamed. There were people in an audience area we had watching what was happening on stream. So yeah, I'd say overall very fun experience to be a part of. A lot of progress has been made, a lot more structure, both on a structural side physically, and also just functionally as well. And it turned out really well. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
we were able to do it again.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great time. Final question here. So one of the big things that's happened between 23 and 24 was the DePaul shirt. How many DePaul shirts were there, and
Oh.
did you wear your authentic first print edition one?
Yeah. So I did have I had my authentic first print edition of the balls um on me for day zero. I wore it on Thursday. And in hindsight, I probably should have just swapped it on real quick for CCA, but I think what I did is I put on one of my two Splatoon at Purdue shirts instead.
A
Um,
fair
yeah,
compromise.
so fair compromise because, I'm playing for Purdue, I'm repping Purdue, I want to be wearing the Purdue shirt. Um, but there were a surprising number of people wearing the DeBalls shirts, everything considered. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 people. And that's like
Hmm.
enough where you're like, okay, this is pretty funny. And it's like that's the point of the shirt. It's supposed to be funny. It's a whole
Hmm.
joke. But being able to see that in person was like, yes, I love it.
Did
It was so good.
did Frosty have a wrinkled shirt too?
Uh Frosty Frosty had like I don't know if you know about this, but he has a chump cosplay.
Oh yeah, yeah he
Yeah,
does.
and he I love you, Frosty, but it was kind of you kind of only went half the way there as you could have with that cosplay. Plus your shirt was wrinkled. Um, Speaking of Frosty, we had a moment between each other where he told me that no one would ever believe me, and I'm gonna keep it that way. I'm gonna keep it to myself.
Oh
All in good
God,
fun, but yeah,
our favorite staff member, the village idiot.
the village idiot himself, true. But yeah,
Yes. So.
overall, really fun experience. I'm really happy that we had the turnout we did, not just because of, being able to have that many people compete, but also just seeing so many collegiate people, like, just there around. Got to hang out with the Skyfall people again for a little bit. For instance, I hung out with the Goomies a little bit, which was really fun. I said hi to like
Mhm.
Spirality, and I think there were a few DePaul people there. I also said hi to, and also Big Fat Sea Cows, of course. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was really good.
Sounds like a great time. So recommend it for next year if the people can do it.
No, absolutely. Riptide, especially this past year, it's just such a fun experience. Like, even I think what's important to keep in mind is unless if you're like a plus player or something, you're not really going there to get a huge win or something, right? You're there to have fun. Like if you get a funny result or even just a funny Twitter clip where you can go online and be like, "Hey guys, I got a quad and then I squid bagged on them. Check it out." Like I feel like even that's enough. It's all in good fun. There's plenty of side events going on. There's so many different people from the community that you can meet. Like there were some people there that I met that it's like I had no idea you're even going to be here, and this is
Hmm.
crazy. And then I proceeded to beat them in Mario Party later on in the day. um,
Well,
but yeah, no, it was a really good. It's a lot of good fun. Highly recommend it.
yeah, no, it sounds like a fantastic time. So, yeah, it seems like CCA's appearance at the 2020 Riptide 2024 was great, and hopefully, I mean, I can't confirm anything. That's not my position, but hopefully, we can collaborate with them again in the future.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, that brings us to a recap of the summer events. Oma, do you want to get to talk about something a little bit more recent now?
Yeah, I think it's about time we talk about the big elephant in the room outside of obviously Circuit Qualifier 1 happening tomorrow, and that's Entrance Exam 4. Uh, Obviously, typically it's used for the CCA league seeding primarily. Of course, we're also doing that for the circuit, but um, it kind of had a lot of interesting turnouts this year and a lot of new faces as well, which we've come to expect through this tournament. It kind of gives us a heads up of like how different new faces typically play, and it kind of hints us as to what to look forward to. Hint, hint, Texas A&M's a Maroon team later on today, as well as one of their other members from a different team too. But yeah, entrance exam 4, it just it was a really interesting showing this year. Some teams on it just completely surprised us. Cough, cough, in my opinion, at least death roll. um, but
We'll
yeah,
get there when we get there.
yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, Krona, do you have anything else to add to that?
To the format itself, not really. I mean, it's what people have come to expect with entrance exam, 3 hour ladder. And I'm hoping, well, we're hoping that it was a good experience for people and that you're able to find some matches that are at your level. Again, it's not the end all be all for seeding. We take it as a relatively construct, but it's also kind of good just to know where you place in the larger collegiate scene and such.
Yeah,
But I do think some performances from a few teams should definitely be noted here as we start to build up the storylines for what's going to be happening over the semester. So, if unless you have anything else, I think I should talk about some of them, right?
yeah, I'd say go for it. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, you know me, I have like 20 written down, but I'll save it to the top five or so.
Hmm.
But I think there's some very good performances from a lot of teams that have kind of surprised me too, with kind of some of their recent activity. One of them I kind of want to highlight was North Carolina Greensboro's Surging C, which is their new varsity team. Had a very strong start here with some E4 results. Traditionally North Carolina Greensboro has always been that top of Div 3, bottom of Div 2 type of team. But I think with this new roster, with a new player addition of a new promising overall mid level player in the Splatoon scene, I really think they can maybe start to push for a little bit more higher place within the pecking order this season. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on them for future developments. Another team that recently got a really good player and has been improving tremendously off of that has been UCF's University of Southern Florida Splatoon Gold. So for those of you around previously, they were known as the Bull Sharks. Played in Division Three, 3-2 in Group D last season, I believe. I think they just missed it from a circle of suck. But they added a brand new collegiate player, a high level Splatoon player to their team, and they've been blazing a path forward. They've been a very consistent player in some CSC events, so I've seen a lot of them at this point. And they did not disappoint this exam, having some pretty impressive victories. There's definitely some room for them to grow. I don't think they're ready for like the top dogs of Div 1 yet, but it's going to be very promising. And they remind me a lot of what GMU Academy was at the beginning of last. No, not Academy. Patriots were at the beginning of Season 5. Two other teams I want to highlight before I'll pass the mic to Oma. Coyotes Black, picking up from when they left off last season. Coyotes Black came out swinging in this entry exam 4 with a record of winning 2 matches over tax collectors and then going 1-1 with Champlain in matches. So this was a middle of the pack Division three team. They were in that huge circle of suck group. I think it was Group B from season five there. But it's very promising stuff for them. We'll kind of see how it plays out with a little bit more um, less difficult of a schedule as they were last season. And then finally, I wanted to highlight RAT Orange Zest Extra Zesty. RAT, if you remember from last season, had a very rough season five. I think they lost like four game nines back to back in Division Two. But after that and then appearance from Riptide, RAT is back here full force. The very solid performance in the E4 with notable wins over Champlain Cerulean and University of Central Florida's second team, Knights Rising. So very excited to see what the RAT crowd cooks up here. So yay, Krona spiel over. Oma, what are your teams that you have your eye on here?
Yeah, totally. So I have actually a solid list myself as well, but I'm going to go ahead and just do some initial shout outs. Uh, First off, I want to shout out a Purdue team, definitely not biased at all, but in particular, I wanted to start off by shouting out Bash. They've been putting in a lot of hard work this past summer, kind of in the off season with some different tournaments. They had a pretty decent showing at Riptide as well, I believe in silver bracket, um, doing pretty well there. And Bash overall had a pretty respectable showing in entrance exam 4. They did have a matchup against Death Roll in their second, or not their second to last round that they played, where I unfortunately I think we kind of know what happened there based on how Death Roll did. But they had some solid results against quite a few new faces to the CCA and also some older faces as well. For instance, they had a victory over California State University Long Beach Blue. They also had a victory over Texas A&M's white team. And
Mm-hmm.
they also had a win against the XX Shadow Warriors XX from Xbox Live.
You just want an excuse to say the name, didn't you?
Yes, yes. But yeah, no, Bash, in all seriousness, has I already said it before. They've been really grinding in the off season. In particular, they even won the bronze bracket of one of the more recent from the Ink Ups. So
I did
they've
see that.
kind of
Yep.
been up and up recently. I know they've been grinding low ink too, and they're really looking
Mm-hmm.
to get some results under their belt and make a name for themselves moving forward. So they're going to be a team I'm going to just be keeping tabs on personally.
I
Uh,
went.
yeah, my next team I have up is the very classic, like, this is the CCA team I think of when we talk about CCA teams, and it's from Cal Poly Pomona, and it's
Mm.
Wahoo Pole.
Jesus.
I I saw this team and I was kind of joking around, but in all seriousness, they actually did like pretty well, everything considered. In entrance exam 4, they played 10 matches total and they won 6 of them, with some notable wins against PSU's Fish, 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 Fish. They also had a win over Texas
Great.
A&M's black team. In addition to that, they had a win over a few different JV teams from notable universities that have very strong powerhouse teams such as UCF and UTK. So, yeah, I mean, Wahoo Pull, like, I didn't realize you were like that, and I didn't realize that you were a like a conglomerate of college students from Cal Poly Panoma. But shout outs to you. Um, and then I'm gonna do one last shout out before we move on to maybe a little bit of debates and other coverage. But I also wanted to talk about the Red Embers. They've been probably
Mm.
my personal favorite team to follow. If you had to make me answer what's my favorite CCA team, I probably would honestly say Red Embers. Um,
Over Walk or any of the other Purdue teams? Wow.
I mean, I'm biased to a certain point, okay? Uh,
Fair enough.
but Uh, Red Embers played 8 games total, only losing one to the Big Fat Sea Cows. They were able to get some notable wins over the Wave Riders, Egg Spaghetti Splatlanders, and Drexel Dragons. So Red Embers really I mean, as you'd expect, coming out swinging, they've been consistently one of the strongest teams in the CCA since their debut about a year ago now. So
Yep.
I'm going to be looking to see what they pull off in the circuit, and I'm going to keep cheering them on, and of course, rooting for, I mean, the teams I've mentioned, and I mean, most of you too, watching right now. I want to make sure that, everyone has fun to the best of their ability. So, Krona, any thoughts on that? Anything else you want to mention or debate here?
Uh, there's many things I could talk about, as you know me.
Hmm.
I think I do want to mention the Red Embers things quickly because looking at the results, like yeah, they still what 8-1, 7-1, but like
Yeah.
other teams are starting to close the gap on them too. Drexel was able to take a game off them. Splatlanders were able to take a game off them, and VCO swept them completely. So like whether that's they're rusty a little bit, or if it's a new roster thing, or if it's like other teams are starting just to progress further than them, that kind of opens the debate to see kind of what's going to happen with them this kind of semester and such. They had a bit of a roster change. I don't remember how extensively it is, but I do remember that they are different. They are a different team in some components than they were the last seasons. So definitely keep an eye out on that. I also kind of do want to touch on the elephant in a roll, that being death roll. Let me quickly pull up the exact number because for dramatic effect, going at 10-1, um, being the top team of the entire event from game wins alone. I think a lot of people are putting a lot of weight on their name, but for me, I'm still kind of the jury's still out. Mainly because their schedule really wasn't that difficult if you look at some of the other top five teams. They really only faced UCF's varsity team once. Didn't even run into Red Embers, Old Bay, to PSU's varsity, to VCU's. Mainly just spending the entire tournament beating up those like traditional Division 3 through 5 teams. Not to discredit Death Roll at all. They're a great batch of players. I think they just missed out Division 2 playoffs from last season. I do know that Nitro and a few other people there have been really grinding the summer, but I'm still a little bit skeptical to see kind of if this result in entry exam 4 is going to translate well when they're put with teams more kind of at their expected level of play. So that's definitely going to be something I'm going to be personally looking out for a lot this qualifier tomorrow.
I think that's a pretty reasonable takeaway. Um, when it came down to it, like Death Roll, it really was only UCF Knights that, like, in terms of formal teams that, we know perform well, that have that kind of history generally behind them. They're the only ones that really came out running in a regard of like, okay, we're going to be fighting the top teams and we're going to either win or come close to winning. Like UCF Knights, they beat PSU Blue. They
Mm-hmm.
they did go 0-2 against Big Fat Sea Cows. Big Fat Sea Cows didn't drop a single game or set though, outside of a choke or a near choke against Splatlanders and Old Bay Brigade, which kind of interesting in their own rights. We've talked about Splatlanders before. The Splatlanders, I feel like initially they were a team that at least I didn't like fully understand. I don't want to say understand because I don't think that's the right way of putting it, but a team that I didn't. They were always an enigma. I don't know. But the way that they've really come out swinging since really, especially season 5, it's like I feel like these guys could be like the God Slayers, if you know what I'm saying. That super chump with the Splatana stamper and everything.
Oh my god. Yeah, I kind of branching on something you said there, and it's something I was realizing when we were talking the other results. University of Central Florida also has a pretty good storyline to them too. If you remember, season 4, that was the first time they have not made Division 1 playoffs at all, which is crazy to think about. And they bounced back in season 5, ending up not really surprising everyone, but kind of everyone was kind of had them a little bit as a dark horse after the performance in season 4. Then to have Booyah Bowl, where they placed third in the entire event, and then to come back swinging with this extraordinary roster here in EU4. So I think this might be their time for a resurgence and try to see if they can push back up into the top level of Collegiate Splatoon, as other teams such as UCS Navy, PSU, VCU and ISU have started to kind of push them a little aside. So it's going to be very interesting to see their developments there too. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, again, I could talk for hours on this thing. You know how much, you know, yeah.
yeah. No, I hear you. Absolutely.
But I think we do have other things we do want to talk about. Mainly a few other entrance exam teams we want to dive into with some more specificity, right, Oma?
Yeah, do we want to in particular talk about the elephant of the elephants in the room?
So just a larger elephant, a different
It's just
color elephant.
it's like a
Oh no, it's a maroon, white, and black colored elephant.
no, you're right. Yeah, it is a maroon elephant, in particular a elephant from Texas. I'm gonna drop the elephant bit now.
Yeah, this
Uh,
metaphor is not working at all. But
they're they literally have a like a I think it's a Saluki as a mascot. I guess you guys can correct me maybe in a second if I got that wrong, but yeah, let's go ahead and get our wonderful guests on here. We
yeah,
got
those include yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
sorry.
no, we got Drewski from I believe Texas A&M's Maroon team, and then we got Flayme. Um, and I believe you're from
From white.
yeah, White. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you both on. How are you two doing today?
Howdy, y'all. We're doing great. Finished up the week. Always nice to end a Friday not feeling like you've failed an exam or two. Uh, feeling good about the tournament tomorrow. Flame you.
I'm looking forward to it. Very excited. Can't say the same
Yeah.
about the failing exams thing for this Friday, but we make it through.
Oh yeah, I mean that's college for you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and sorry for the little bit of a drawn out first bit there, but we're very glad to have you two here. To our audience, let me give you a short introduction to Texas A&M University. So, a new semester always brings a new cluster of teams and universities to the scene, and fall 2024 is no different at all. Here, kind of the big notable horse joining the race is Texas A&M University, which is another big hitter university from Texas. They are making their true CCA debut in Entry Exam 4. They're bringing three teams into the seeding events, those being Maroon, White, and then Black. The Maroon team, their varsity team, placed fifth overall with notable wins over PSU, Fish, Egg Spaghetti, and then a very close losses to University of New Mexico Splatoon and then Banana Splits. So here to talk both about Texas A&M Splatoon program and what is in the future for all three of their teams is Drewski and Flayme. So, welcome to the podcast.
Howdy. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, kind of jumping a bit into it, let's talk a little bit about kind of the history of Splatoon at Texas A&M and kind of how the club came to be. So, what was the experience like in getting the Splatoon scene started at university? And what has been the biggest difficulty faced in getting things off the ground, and how did you overcome these difficulties?
So, sadly, our founder is not with us here today. Squishy is down with the sickness. Uh, Luckily, we have Flame here to cover for him. But he was a long-time Splatoon player. He was a Division Two Ludi in Splatoon 2, which is crazy to think about. Um, but he came back from a hiatus, and he was uh, at A&M University. And we've never had a Splatoon team before, despite being, I think, the top three universities in terms of size of student population, which is always crazy to us that we didn't have a team with that big of a school. So he reaches out to the esports community, which we do have, and he gets a poll going about trying to form team members. Uh, Around that same time, perhaps a little bit before that, there's this Splatoon Texas server. It exists, it is dead. The entire summer, there was about one message a week saying, "Hey, Low Tide City," and then nothing else.
That's wild.
But he did manage to catch one person with a request asking if there were any Texas A&M students seeking to join a Splatoon team. Now, at the time, I was technically a high school senior. Yes, I'm a freshman. But I reached out to him, And then from there, he made the poll in the esports server, which helped us reach a few other students who had previously competed in Ludi or otherwise were in competitive. And from there,
Mm-hmm.
we had our Maroon squad, as it is today, was formed over the summer. For a brief moment, we actually had no affiliation to the esports club at Texas A&M, but we joined them. We merged with them because of the benefits they brought to us. I think you mentioned the biggest issues we had.
Mm-hmm.
We got to not necessarily skip over, but a lot of those were a lot smoother because we were annexed by a larger organization that had the resources, that had the outreach. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's sounds like what a lot of universities go through and stuff too. But it's interesting to hear at the outreach you had, and you were able to reach a lot of those players over the summer too. Usually you see a lot of schools kind of recruit early in the fall to get like enough people for teams and such. But it's glad to hear that you're able to do something over the summer to get a kickstart and to get the ball rolling and such. Um, but yeah, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I got it. So, about how long have you all been aware of the CCA and I guess collegiate splatoon in general? And was it a driving force in y'all getting your scene started?
So initially, um, we had no idea the CCA existed. But that was for a very short time because I was in a sorry, Squishy so much wasn't that aware of it because this was a development. The CCA didn't exist the last time he was in competitive Splatoon, so that was
Mm-hmm.
fun. But I, on my competitive team, Fearless, shout out, have two CCA teammates, one on the UCF and one on Ohio State. So I had sort of a third degree knowledge of the CCA just from hearing from my teammates. So knowing that there was a competitive league out there and it wouldn't just be a club for fun definitely accelerated our goal of multiple teams and practice over the summer, uh, try to improve as much as we could.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised to see just how many universities and teams could be here in the CCA when you kind of dove into things? Like, did you think it was a smaller thing or a pretty large thing?
Initially, yeah, it seemed like a smaller thing because you never really know how big the Splatoon community is as a
Mm-hmm.
whole because it can be so fragmented and there's so many players that don't even know about competitive. Um, but like joining the CCA server and seeing like even these like tiny schools, like I think I noticed this last night. There's like two schools from one town in Massachusetts. It's amazing how like welcoming and how many schools can participate in the CCA.
And funny enough, I'm from one of those teams on one of those small towns from Mass. You're talking about Worcester, which has Clark and
Yeah,
WPI, but
yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, no, I mean, again, it's because a lot of the people, especially the staff, have been here forever. So we've been seeing all these developments over the last few years. So it's really interesting to hear people who've just kind of found out about the CCA in kind of the recent months and such. So kind of just to see how your introduction to our community has been different, like vastly different than how ours were and such too. So always interested on that front.
Yeah, and like Flame too. I wanted to ask, how have you like been? How did you get informed of this even being a thing? Because obviously there's more people involved in this as well, you know?
Yeah, so really the way I got involved was through my roommate. He was
Okay.
with the two and I. We were both we're sophomores. We were very interested in finding just people to play Splatoon with at best, right, last
Yeah.
year, and we just didn't really know how to go about that, let alone start a competitive scene. We were interested in it, but had no clue to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of let it fall behind as I got busy with school and I got busy doing kind of other things. But my roommate, he kind of kept up with it, and he eventually he realized that things were starting to pick up again towards the beginning of the semester, and he tells me about it, and I'm back in it. I'm immediately interested again. Um, so it kind of happened very very quickly for me, even though it was a much longer process for him. But that was very exciting to see, and I was very excited to get back into it.
No, yeah, that's awesome to hear. Like so many people just get involved into this scene in so many different ways. Like I remember, like I already graduated, but I was able to find out about the Splatoon stuff that was offered through Purdue, through our like club career fair that the then officers were kind of holding. So just hearing everyone's different stories is fascinating. It's either like sometimes it's a roommate like kind of in your situation that's like,
Mm.
hey, I'm in the know. And then sometimes it's like I was just walking down the road and someone was wearing a Splatoon shirt. I'm like, yo, that's a nice Splatoon shirt. And they're like, oh, I have a bunch of other friends who we play Splatoon. You should join us. And so
Hmm.
it's funny to hear how it all comes about, and sometimes you get a crazy team out of it that pops off really hard, and it's fun to see. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Indeed.
For
awesome.
sure.
Um, so moving along, this is the first year that you guys have had a formal program, and you already have enough players for three full teams. We have, I mean, two of those teams represented with you guys right now. And were you expecting such a high turnout, relatively speaking, especially right off the bat? And how did you manage having such a large number of players this semester?
So I think for the first half of the question, I can say we were not expecting this. The attitude over the summer was, we had all the players that had a Send to Ink account on Maroon, and then we were thinking, maybe we'll scrounge together 4 people to make a second team. Um, we turned out to have 16 players in total. We split them among 3 teams. How we did that, I think that's a better question for Flayme because, you know, to this day, I'm still not entirely sure how we got that many players.
Uh, I wouldn't be able to answer that any better. It's a miracle that we managed to have such a large turnout of players that were even at the school at the time for the most part. Because it's really a combination of everybody. It's not like there's one demographic that we have a whole lot more of than another. I think it's been really great having that many players just because it makes scheduling a whole lot easier because of course we've got 6 on team on like our white team, our team B, and we've got 5 on our third team, which is even more insane to me. It wasn't just a last minute team kind of fixing everything together with what we have left. No, we had more than enough, which I thought was that was astounding to me. That was very very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm blanking, but it was really impressive to see like how many people showed up. Like we had a in-person event towards the beginning of the year before we had tryouts. How many
Mhm.
people showed out to that? We had, just so much overwhelming support. I think partially because of, like you said, we were annexed into the esports organization at our university. They could, do outreach. They could find other people that maybe play other games, but Splatoon's their passion. Uh, you know, but overall, the number of players we have is astounding.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that goes kind of with the population question or population comment you made as well earlier too. Texas A&M being one of the largest universities in the U.S. It's glad to hear that that also is represented through Splatoon, and I mean, I guess esports in general too. It's exciting to hear.
Mhm.
For
So
sure.
yeah, so could y'all talk about a little bit about your different experiences with the players you have on each of your respective Texas A&M teams? And how are managing these players from varying Ludi divisions and having them kind of take part and also bringing in newer players? Like, what's that experience like overall?
So I think you're going to find our 2 teams lie on very different sides of the coin. Maroon was very, very lucky that we had 5 players who all had previous competitive experience to some extent. You have, you know, our captain Squishy and founder who was previously Division 2, but back in Splatoon 2, he was in a bit of an, no man's land as to how good he was at the time. We know he's cracked now, but you know, um, I think all of our players more or less fell into the Ludi Division 6 to 8 range. We found, and the fact that we were all in like more or less the same skill range made coordinating really, really easy because it didn't rely on one person carrying everybody else or one person trying to communicate ideas to other people that they didn't understand. We were all on the same page, and that really made life a lot easier. You know, I don't think the same, or not necessarily the same on skill level, but uh, we all had previous experience, with stuff like comms and teamwork that we weren't sure how it was going to translate to like Team White or Team Black, but Flame can attest.
Yeah, certainly. White team is almost entirely new to the competitive scene. Most of us have played the game for quite a while, and we've gotten quite good. I think we have a lot of really strong talent, but again, it's completely new to working on a team and playing in a competitive scene. We're still a bunch of solo queue players that are just putting a team together at first, but we've been coming together. We've been really workshopping and really coming together as a team. I think really nicely.
Is there, so to speak kind of to what you were just saying there, Flame, is there any kind of like interactions you have with those Maroon players for like guiding and like passing down some knowledge about competitive and stuff? Like, is there any of that relationship at Texas A&M, or the teams more separate in their functionalities?
No, they've actually Drew here has been a big player in that. He's been very, very hands-on with both white team and black team, doing all kinds of coaching, VOD reviews. He's been providing all kinds of incredible resources to kind of further our investment into the scene and really get more of that experience that we've been searching for. So he's been very, very helpful in that regard.
Yeah, as a freshman, I'm hoping that I can keep this program going for 3 more years. And with that in mind, the idea is, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? Even if Maroon's good now, if we're only good now, we have 2 seniors on our team. They're going to graduate, and if we have a bunch of white and black players that end up quitting because we don't put like the resources into them, then we're a one and done team that only played for 1 year, and I'd hate for that to happen. So we've definitely been trying to keep the teams interconnected, not on their own islands.
Yeah, the story with Collegiate is very much you need to adapt to the new players you're getting and the players you're losing, because everything is very temporal. So it's really good to hear that you're trying to build up that good foundation for your program, because that will pay off dividends later when things develop more. And the players that might be new to competitive get more and more experience, and they can start to lead more consistently and stuff too. I did want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, mainly that you had some of the Maroon players get together to play over the summer, mainly kind of looking at your centers for some of the all-for-one events. Could you kind of talk about kind of your experience with those events and just kind of what those looked like for Maroon? Were those kind of just getting to know people, adapting to things, or
So they were definitely two very different stories. The first one was our first time playing together outside of, I think we might have played Sendu a couple times,
Mhm.
but we were still trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. It takes a while for your teammates' names to like stick to your tongue, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we got silver bracket, I believe, in the standard placement, which was all right at the time, but we definitely had hopes for more. But the the golden gauntlet version of All for One that occurred later in the summer was after we had kind of practiced more. We had met up, we had talked. We were a lot more confident in what we could do. And Golden Gauntlet is intended to be kind of the tougher version of
The combination of other events,
yeah. It's the kind of ultimate version of it, and we ended up tied for 9th, which for a team that was still like very young, we had existed for a couple months by then, but we were still we hadn't had a lot of opportunities to play with each other because as college students are busy. But that was definitely an impressive result, and it gave us a lot more confidence going into the year. I mean, I think that was still before we had white and black teams figured out, but I think with that happening, we were like, okay, this can happen. We can, even though we're brand new, we don't have to spend a year or two like figuring out how to play Splatoon as a university.
Yeah. I will mention from a spectator's perspective, it's very interesting to watch your Golden Gauntlet run, because I was playing that too, and I'm like, oh, Texas A&M, that's a new collegiate team. So to see collegiate teams taking the initiative, especially with summer stuff, it's always an amazing thing to hear. And like you kind of said, it's already starting to pay back with just getting more familiar with your teammates and kind of prepping for the more collegiate restricted and related events, such as entrance exam. So speaking on entry exam, going into entry exam, this is for both of you too. How much did you know about the teams that were comprised of? Were some of the more notable ones, both those who competed well inside the collegiate scene and those who competed outside the collegiate scene at notable levels, or was this entire tournament more about meeting new faces completely?
I think it was mostly new faces. I previously mentioned that on my competitive team, I had a UCF and an Ohio State player playing with me, so I was familiar with their teams. Some of their teammates were scrim partners, and to that extent we had it. But like scrolling through the CCA directory, I tried to do as much research as I could over the summer. But besides those 2 teams, there were a lot of teams that I was just in the dark about. So like seeing all these teams, like EE4 was definitely a lot of, okay, that's their name. I can look in the directory, that's their school. Who are they? The only way to find out is in the game.
Yeah. What about you, Flayme? Did you have any knowledge of the names, or
Not really. No, we knew pretty much nothing. We were kind of just jumping in and seeing where we landed, and then we made adjustments from there. With it being brand new, we had only had like a few games as a team to begin with anyway, so we were just kind of getting a placement more than anything, seeing where we kind of fit in the hierarchy.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a completely valid way to have for entrance exam. But like as you'll start to know with some participating on the collegiate scene, you'll get to know the familiar faces, and the whole segments that me and Oma were doing beforehand, listing off teams and such, will become less gibberish to you as time goes on.
Sure.
So, yeah, Owen, do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, totally. So when it comes to like entrance exam, right? You guys were able to have an 8-2 record in
Maroon, yeah.
in the tournament, Maroon specifically. And it was a really impressive first appearance overall, and especially just to the collegiate scene in general too. Y'all were able to beat out Egg Spaghetti, UCF, Splatoon Gold, and bring Banana Split, a notorious and relatively classic Division One Splatoon team here at the CCA, to a Game 3. TAMU White themselves, you all also had a solid first appearance as well, where you were able to beat Auburn Orange, as well as Champlain Seafoam. Auburn Orange in particular also being a previous division winner. So could you go ahead and talk about your experience with Entrix Exam 4, both as you approach kind of the latter format in that tournament and the more notable matches from your perspective?
So it is somewhat unfortunate. On the day of Entrance Exam 4, I was part of the... And then literally exactly halfway through, I went 4-1, and then I had internet issues, so I had to watch my team continue the rest of it. However, I still got to keep up with them, and that was nice. I got to participate in the game against the USF, and was it Egg Spaghetti, whatever school they are. And it was very interesting how varied the skill level was. I don't want to throw shade or anything, but I think the first couple matches we were like, okay, I think we're playing some lower div teams, we weren't sure how prepared we were because we didn't feel like we were playing proper opponent. And then when we played Egg Spaghetti, I believe that was round 3. That was when it felt like, okay, now we're dealing with strong opponents. Now we're dealing with we're being tested. And I think that was good for us because I think a lot of our more impressive wins came later on, and it was because of our experience earlier in the entrance exam that we managed to finish strongly. I think we won the last 4 rounds. But if you ask me, even though Maroon went 8-2, and that's fun and all, we had played, as mentioned before, 2 tournaments over the summer. A winning record by our white team, who was in their first tournament ever. I think that's the real achievement of our program.
Would you agree, Flayme?
I was quite satisfied with those results. Yeah, that was quite exciting to see. It really, I think it kicked off some really strong momentum for the team as a whole going forward.
Mm-hmm.
It was good to see. Sorry.
No, continue. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it was good to see that we weren't just kind of gonna fall randomly into the scene. We were kind of able to make a splash as we jumped in, which I liked.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Collegiate has always tended to be a little bit more low-level heavy just because it's really a great introductory place for newer players. So there's just so many different teams at so many different skill ranges that there's kind of a place for everyone, which is always great. So it's great to hear that you have experience with the tournament and such. This is a question more for Maroon. So the entrance exam leaderboard is always a bit scuffed due to differing strength schedules, and we talked about that earlier with a bit of death rolls. However, placing 5th overall is still a fantastic achievement for a first-time collegiate team. We're excited with this performance. Do you think it accurately reflects what Texas A&M University Maroon has to offer, or is there still we have not seen yet?
I think, ending the day 8-2, we were very satisfied. I think as a program, knowing what we have with 5 players with competitive experience, our expectations are very high. So we definitely think there's room for improvement. But when your 2 losses are, and not to give any discredit to UCD, they earned that win for sure. In Game 3, they took us down. But there was a disconnect in that game, which was unfortunate. And then our next loss was the game after we transitioned to our other player. And then every game before that and every game after that, we won. So, I don't want to discredit the other teams, but it's hard not to feel like perhaps, we have a lot more left in the tank. We have, we got a really good result, but I don't think we're done improving. I don't think we're done getting good results. I think tomorrow we can make a splash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like we just lost Flayme, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, it's great to hear kind of that from a perspective. Entry exam is always a bit of a rough shot sometimes, but it's good to hear you kind of have that strength going forward. And I think the qualifiers will treat your team very well, both with some strong opponents and for an ability to kind of show and shine what your team has to fully offer. Oma, do you want to take this next question?
Yeah, sure. So as a team that hasn't really played in too many CCA events previously and doesn't really have a frame of reference or what I guess the league kind of looks like, what are your thoughts on the circuit format for this semester? And are you excited to play in it?
So I was definitely curious. We spent all summer really trying to commit to, knowing how the CCA works, knowing how this is going to run, and then we get an announcement after all the summer events finish up of, hey, we're doing something different. And on the one hand, it was kind of oh, okay, we spent all summer stressing about, are we going to be placed in Div 1, Div 2, Div 3? We were good, we're in the program. How's that going to work? But on the other hand, even though that kind of went out the window, I think the circuit format for a new team is going to be really fortunate because we're going to have multiple weekends to figure out where we place, not just for us, but for our lower teams as well. Finding where we are in the scene, as opposed to the previous format where it was, the division you get, the division you get, and then you try to make that work. I really appreciate the fact that divisions are flexible in the circuit. I think that really allows teams to improve a lot over the year to, have a chance to make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, generally positive thoughts on the CCA circuit.
Yeah, I mean that's great to hear. Mainly from a newer team too. Like it very much is kind of a bit of a departure from what we've typically done, but we staff have put in a lot of time into making sure this thing is solid and sound. We're really excited to see how this turns out. So I think it's going to treat you, as I mentioned before, I think it's going to treat your team very well, and all of them, because of those flexibility nature of it. I guess on that note, what are you kind of hoping to get out of the circuit this semester? Where do you think you're going to end up being placed overall? And do you any teams or notable matches you kind of have your eyes on already?
Definitely hoping, Division One. We got top 5 in an entrance exam, which isn't, the end all be all, but it is, hopeful that, maybe we're not Division One tomorrow, but even if we're Division Two, Division Three, we can make that stance to push back or push up into Division One, and as I said before, the flexible divisions make that a possibility. I think it's also good for, I said before, our lower teams who have no idea where they are can develop as a time, and it's not just about the fall, but it's also about going into the spring. We're going to have a lot more information about how we are as a team against a variety of opponents of skill levels, as opposed to how it's previously been with both seasons being the standard. I think a lot of learning to be done and a lot of improving.